Hi again folks, how's all doing? Here we have an old Bachmann Class 4 that was sent to me by a chap called Paul. He said this doesn't run too well and it's got a severe case of the wibbly wobblies. So let's turn on the power, have a wee look. Yeah, I know what's causing that, having worked one of these before with the same problem. Let's get it into the shed and we'll see if we can sort it out. Righto then, an old Bachmann Split Chassis Class 4. I've looked at a couple of these before, and this has got the same problem as the first one I looked at. The plastic inserts in the wheels have bulged out. Tender looks okay, we'll get that out of the rod. So yeah, how bad is it? Just let you see. So you can see there, the plastic insert, it's bulged out in the middle and it's hitting the rods. And it's the same for all the wheels. So when I sorted this problem before, I drilled little holes at the centre of the wheels and put little M2 screws in just to clamp the plastic inserts down in the middle, and that seemed to work. So I might do the same again here, but I think this time I'm going to try gluing them with some epoxy. Now I have read online of people trying that and not having much success, but I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work in principle. But yeah, we'll see. I think possibly what people haven't been doing is preparing the surfaces of the wheel and the plastic insert correctly. And if you've got two flat surfaces being glued together, if they're both perfectly smooth, they're not going to glue very well. So you need to roughen up the plastic, roughen up the metal, clamp it together with something like epoxy, and leave it to set for 24 hours. And I don't see why that wouldn't work. So I'm going to give that a go. If it doesn't work, then we'll resort to my previous method of screwing the wheel inserts in. But first things first, let's get this apart and we'll see if anything else is up with it. Get that screw out. Body comes off. One gear's got plenty of lubrication on it. It all looks fine. Right, let's get this underframe off. Pops off like that. Now then, let's state the axles in. They appear to be okay, which is good. There's a bit too much grease in there. We'll need to clean that out. But other than that, they seem okay. So unscrew the crank pins and we'll take the wheel set out. That one. Now if I remember rightly, these ones are not screwed in, they're pushed in. Right, so just want to get the screwdriver behind the whole assembly and just pull it out. So give this a good scoosh down in the gears there. You can see that crap that comes out. Give the wheels a good clean before doing anything else. Clean up all this dried up grease. And now we give the axles a clean. You can see them properly and they are actually cracked. So what I think I'll do is I'll get some super glue into the cracks. I'll just let you see the crack. So you can just see the crack in the axle there. I wouldn't be too alarmed about that. It happens to them all. Get some super glue in there just to stabilise that. I'm sure it'll be fine. You can just see that one's got a crack as well. But the drive gear seems to be okay once we get it cleaned up. So we want to flatten these plastic wheel inserts. I think just a blob of epoxy in the middle and clamp them together and leave that a good long time to set. I think it'll do it. Let's just get the insert out. And make sure these are well degreased. So I'm going to take a little bit of sandpaper, fairly coarse, and just rough up the middle of the wheel inserts on the inside. And I'm also going to sand the middle of the wheels just to get some scratches on it. A wee blob of epoxy in the middle of the wheel. I really don't want it to be too much. Don't want it squishing through the spokes. Put that on the wheel. Make sure all the spokes line up. Do the same with the other one. I think what I'm going to need to do is get something small on either side between the wheel and the clamp. The clamp itself is a bit too, it's hitting the crank pin hole there, so it's not squeezing in properly. It's okay on that side. So yeah, I need to get some wee nuts or something. Get that to stick on with a bit of black tack. Right, so I've got a nut on there. That should get it to clamp correctly. That's squeezed in, and that's squeezed in. Okay, so that's clamped up. I need to do the same with the others now, and then we'll leave these be for a bit. If this doesn't work, then we'll just drill the little holes and put M2 screws in, and that definitely fixes it, but it's a bit intrusive, a bit drastic. Of course, this won't work if the plastic inserts are bulging at the rim of the wheel. I think if that's happening, well, you could try gluing the whole plastic insert in, I suppose. That would be your only option. But if it's just the middle bit that's bulging out, I think using this method or the screws method should work. Right, okay, that's all sets of wheels glued and clamped. Just have to leave this now till tomorrow, see if it's worked. Okay, 24 hours later, let's see if these have stuck down okay. Seems to be okay. Off camera, I put some super glue into the cracks just to stabilize them a bit. Let's try and undo this one. That off. Well, they look okay. Just gently undo the clamp. Nut off. Yeah, seems okay. Of course, there is the question of how long this will last. What's the chances of them bulging out again? And that was really the reason why I used screws the first time I did this repair. But we shall see. I mean, I'll say to Paul that, if they bulge out again, just to send this back to me and we'll stick screws in. But I really wanted to try the epoxy because it's just a bit easier to do it that way. And it keeps the model looking original as well. It doesn't look too good having a big screw in the middle of the wheel. Right, okay, we'll give the tyres a wee bit of a clean and then we'll get this back together and see how it runs. The axles have been over lubricated. Look at that. Just too much grease. There seems to be a bit of an ongoing debate about how to lubricate these split chassis models. A lot of people use graphite powder, other people use copper grease. Personally, I prefer to use nothing at all, or if anything, just a very, very small touch of oil. The chassis here has to come into contact with the axles there and there. And if you fill up too much lubricant, you end up with poor contact. So you want to make sure your axles are clean and the chassis is clean, and just put a light oil on. I wouldn't use any type of grease. I wouldn't personally use graphite because it gets everywhere, and if it mixes with oil it's just going to create a horrible sticky gunk. Right, okay, so as I say, just a wee touch of oil and that'll do it. That's in. That one in. And pop that one in. Just give this underframe a bit of a scoosh of going over with a manky brush just to degrease it, get rid of some of that old grease. Make sure these crank pins are in accessible position. Right, that's on. There. Go on to there. You have to handle this very carefully because there's a risk of bending the rods, breaking this part here, breaking the axles, or causing the axles to become loose, and then you'd have to replace them. The early Bachmann ones aren't too bad to work on. It's the mainline ones that I simply refuse to touch these days because they're so easily broken, and it's next to impossible to get spare parts for unless you cannibalise them off other models. But at least these Bachmann models run not too bad once you get them sorted out. They're reasonably quiet and smooth. Whereas the mainline ones just sound like food mixers and they're just not worth it. Right, okay, I need to push these middle crank pins in a bit. Just push it at the top of that, I think. Okay. Let's see how that goes. Just put lots of just put a big dollop of gear oil on the worm gear and that'll work down into the gears. You can't really get into the gears unless you disassemble the entire thing. There we go. Right, I thought I was going to be able to push these middle crank pins in a bit more, but no, the pin is actually fully in. It's just the way it is, everything's all loose. I looked at one of my early split chassis Bachmanns and it's kind of the same. Everything's all loose. So, I think we're done. We'll give everything a wee spot of oil here and there. Let's get a look at this body. Give it going over with the dusty brush, if I can find it. Where is it? There it is. Right, pump this back in, like so. And when I get time to get around to it, I would like to do a kind of a special on split chassis. Do a complete strip down and rebuild of one. Because one thing I haven't covered very often, I think I did possibly once, is the intermediate gear, which is inside, it sits between the two halves of the chassis. The spindle on that can get worn and cause the model to lurch. So I'd quite like to do a video of dismantling a split chassis model completely and swapping out the gears and all that stuff. Right, let's get this on the test track. Hook that on. There we go. Right, let's go and pull it out the shed. Okay then, let's bring her out. Well, there we go, that's Paul's Class 4 cured of its wibbly wobblies due to its wonky wheel inserts. A very daft idea, those plastic wheel inserts, but this time I epoxied the inserts back into the wheels and clamped them to flatten them out instead of screwing them in. I'm pretty sure that will hold, but if the epoxy fails and the inserts start to bulge out again, Paul can certainly send this back to me and I'll screw them in as I did once before. But I think they'll be good for a while though. You know, they're not really under much stress. Nice locomotive, the 4MT. I'd quite like to get one at some point, but one of the newer ones, I think, just to avoid all the issues with the axles and wheels that this model has. This isn't a bad runner now though. You know, these old Bachmann Split Chassis models can run pretty well, but over time wear and tear does creep in, and you know they can develop little clunks and wobbles because there's no precision engineering in the axles. You know, it's just metal against metal. But as I said, you can pick them up very cheap, and I think they're still worth looking at. Right, I shall get this packed up and sent back to Paul, and we shall see what's next. Catch us later, folks.